And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is The Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Functional government, things getting done. Actually, the wheels spinning on the bus the way they're supposed to. And I know I shouldn't be really excited about the fact that, people are doing their jobs, but I am. After 4 years of having, what we went through, competency seems like something to be celebrating right now. Maybe it'll wear off. I'm hoping not. Maybe we'll get beyond the surprise that smart things are being done. But for right now, I'm still kind of excited about it. Just good stuff. And we're going to get to that today during the program, and a lot of it. Biden with a bunch of executive orders yesterday. Today, ways of moving forward, making people's lives better, and whipping this virus. Good stuff. Now on the impeachment front, I understand the articles of impeachment will be going to the Senate on Monday, as I'm hearing. The trial expected to begin on February 8th. Personally, I'm of two schools of thought. The first school of thought is this should have been done already. And then the other school where I calm down and I take a step back and I let it run through my brain a little bit. While I want speed, while I want swift justice, while I want, incredibly quick accountability, I also understand the fact that this is a huge deal. I mean, the magnitude of what happened on January 6th is enormous. And there's so much to it that you can't rush through, which is why I'm glad that Joe Biden today has requested a comprehensive threat assessment. No, we're not worried about Iraq. No, we're not worried about Afghanistan. No, we're not worried about Syria or Russia or China. We're worried about the people who are our neighbors. And this is one of those things where you look at what happened January 6th, and we're going to see lots of this. This was the first coup attempt in the history of civilization where the criminals actually broadcast in real time their treason. And it's documented. Future generations are going to be able to see these criminals in all of their glory in perpetuity. I was thinking about this today. I go, my great-grandchildren are going to be able to see these people and think exactly, I hope, what the rest of us are thinking of. I hope they were held accountable. I hope the gallows they built went to good use. Because evidently, and this is one of those things where you go, I thought these were the anti-government people. I thought these were the people who, had the bunkers in the backyards with the stash of, of munitions and rice and guns everywhere. Evidently, they were using a bunch of these cell phone apps to communicate, like the Zello, which is like old school walkie-talkies. And my mind's going, if you're going to play old school walkie-talkie, why not just have them? They don't record everything that you say, and they don't have GPS functions to put you in the building. Just kind of throwing that out there. Now, what we're finding out is incredible. And this is where my mind says, maybe we need to slow the impeachment down just a little bit so that each and every day we see another one of these criminals perp walked into jail and then to court. And then we examine all of their crimes as they themselves documented and hold them accountable. Because, the stories that are coming out about these people, just mind-blowing. I mean, openly saying, this is what we trained for. We trained to take over this building and find those senators and find those representatives. We built the gallows. So this idea that the right is spinning, that, this was just a spontaneous occurrence. No one really planned this. Bunk. Well planned. And I said this from the beginning. This is what happened in Richmond when they had the big armed rally day for the Second Amendment. No, that was an exercise. Every time they showed up at one of these capitals over the mask, this was an exercise. This was seeing how far they could go what they could get away with, and what the police response would be, what the military response would be, what the governors would do. Well, I shouldn't say what the president would do because we know what he'll do. Nothing. And I'll get to that in a minute. But those are all dry runs. They're basically casing the joint. And they executed exactly what they came there to do. I mean, for those of us who were paying attention to Parler and to other right-wing sites, this is what they were talking about. Now you could say, well, Rick, not all the people in the crowd, not all of them wanted violence. Not all of them wanted to overthrow our government. And I'll be generous and say, I hope you're right. But the rhetoric to the run-up to why they were there, every person who went there with the idea that we're going to stop the electoral votes from being counted. Every one of them. And there's tons of that video of people going around, why are you here? We're going to stop the recount. We're going to stop the count. Why are you here? It's a revolution. Every one of them went there with that in their mind, that this was our chance. This is what we've been, to quote what was in the newspaper. It's everything we've been effing training for. And look, this isn't new. For those of us who have been paying attention, nothing new here. This kind of militia right-wing extremism has been with us for a very long time. I think most people became aware of it back when McVeigh blew up the Murrah building in Oklahoma City during the Clinton years. But if you live in a place like Michigan, here in Pennsylvania where I live, there are militia groups all over the place. I mean, they don't call Michigan Militiagan for no reason. And these folks have been around, and where my wife took a picture of a guy wearing a Pennsylvania militia jacket in the grocery store while in his full garb. So this isn't new. This is stuff that's been going on. And look, all during the Trump years, we saw these groups, trying to align themselves with the police. We're with you, law enforcement, until we bash your head with a fire extinguisher. Groups like these 3%ers or the Oath Keepers or Lightfoot Militia or the Civilian Defense Force or the American Contingency. These are all groups who have come out in public and been very out front, seeking media attention for what they're doing. That they hate government, that they're organizing to overthrow. They've been talking about this stuff for years. So the fact that now finally someone is saying, hey, maybe we should look at these. Now again, they tried during the Obama years. They tried to point out there was a rise in right-wing extremism. And Janet Napolitano got just skewered over having the audacity to say that, those old white guys in our neighborhood, a lot of them with some military experience, mostly got thrown out. Those people are trouble. We should probably be looking at them. Here we are. And those aren't the only crazy groups. I mean, you've got basically the younger generation who want to get into street fights, like the Proud Boys or my favorite, Patriot Prayer. We're going to beat you to death with the Bible, and then we're going to pray. Evidently, that's the motto there. You also have, these other groups, like the Boogaloo Boys and the People's Rights groups, who are completely anti-government. No laws apply to them. And what all of these groups have in common is they believe in American exceptionalism, their exceptionalism. Not the fact that this country is exceptional, in my view, for a bunch of reasons. Not them being one of them. So I'm of the mindset now, we know who these people are. They've now come out. January 6th was their coming out, their debutante ball. And now we have to pay them the attention that they so sought. And now we're finding out as they're going and arresting these people, like the guy with the zip ties, the famous picture of the guy who had all the zip ties. Evidently, they found a sniper rifle and more handcuffs and all kinds of stuff, basically arsenals, in this guy's house. And it makes me go, look, folks, not new, but maybe we need to have these moments going, look, these are your neighbors. This is somebody that lives in your neighborhood who has the arsenal of 500 guns and 10,000 rounds of ammo and radio equipment and rice and all kinds of stuff buried in his backyard. Maybe we need to be examining this kind of extremism. Maybe. Now, here's the part that I find extremely important. We need to hold every one of those people who stormed the Capitol and all of the things that they did, they need to be held accountable. And I actually think one of the first pieces of legislation put forth should be a retroactive mandatory minimum for anyone who was involved in any of this stuff. But I digress. While they're going to be held accountable because we need to have that as a country, that's going to happen. So if you were there, if you were involved in it, well, they're coming for you because they know who you are. Eventually, your day will come. But my fear is that while we're holding these criminals accountable and doing it, I'm hoping in a very big way, with the daily perp walks, all of the dirty details of their treasonous activities, we got to hold the political class accountable. We've got to hold the Trump all the way down accountable for we got the Trump money, the billionaire money, all the political money that went into building this unholy alliance of right-wing craziness. Understand, we lived through the Obama years where it was nothing but Benghazi, Benghazi, Benghazi. We went through the 2016 election, heard nothing but Benghazi, Benghazi, Benghazi. This is 1,000 times worse than Benghazi. And the GOP is telling us, well, let's all just hold hands. Let's forgive and forget. We need more unity. Let's be nice to each other. And while, look, I'm all for unity once we're done with accountability. But this is 1,000 times worse than Benghazi. And for me, it is asking those questions, and really important questions, because we're going to see a lot in the impeachment coming out about Trump and him and out there basically inspiring this insurrection, going after and saying that he incited the violence, which again we're going to hear a lot of language about. Well, you have to fight the First Amendment right to say this or that, and just because other people did it doesn't mean he's accountable for it. We're going to hear all that nonsense. And while he has to be tried for inciting violence and inciting this, I think the bigger part of this, and it's what I said from the day it was happening, where was the National Guard? Why weren't there reinforcements? Why wasn't there a contingency plan? Why did we not respond? The nation was under attack and there was nobody at the wheel. The nation was being invaded and there was no response. There was nothing. And for me, the idea, and a friend of mine pointed this out, he's like, this is what dereliction of duty looks like. The commander-in-chief was derelict of his duty. If some private were in the military, and look, I've never served in the military, but I know tons of people who have, and they tell me if you leave your post unattended, that's your behind. There's no, I had to go pee. There was none of that. You were derelict of duty and they run you out on a rail. For me, this is that moment where we go, the commander-in-chief of the country in a moment of insurrection, when the country is under attack, was nowhere to be found. Oh, wait a minute. He was somewhere to be found. And again, we've got video evidence of it. He was watching a TV screen and smiling. The reports that have come out is he was gleeful that these people were fighting for him. His loyalists were out there fighting for him. At a moment where they're out there screaming, we're going to go get those representatives. And look, we're going to find transcript after transcript of the geniuses using the cell phone apps saying, hey, let's go find those reps and hang them. We got the guy. Or the video of, find Mike Pence and hang him too. The other part of this is, where were the cheerleaders? Where were the Josh Hollies? Where were the Ted Cruzes? Where were the Lauren Boeberts who said, I was sad I didn't have my gun so I could defend us? She's the one who rallied these damn people up, saying, today's 1776. And then she turns and says, I want to shoot them? I mean, this is craziness. And for me, it comes back to, where was Donald Trump? Why did we not call out the National Guards? Why were they not on the standby? Why were they not? I know it's the mayor of D.C. If not for being on terrestrial radio, I would scream the BS word as loud as I could, because that's giant BS. The commander-in-chief of our nation completely failed us. This is why he has to be held accountable. So for all of those people say, well, he's out of office, just let it go. No. This is any president in the future who encourages something like this to happen and then does nothing to stop it has to be held accountable. And I don't care what party. This is not a moment where we go, oh, we need to come together. We were attacked, yes, and we need to unite. But we need to unite around going after those Christo-fascists who Trump has been courting for the last 4 or 5 years, and hold them accountable first. And we're going to have to do it while dealing with a global pandemic, while dealing with an economy that is struggling, while dealing with it while people are troubled and losing jobs and losing their savings and losing their health insurance. We're going to have to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. And I'll tell you what, I'm feeling confident that this administration under President Joe Biden is going to get us to that place. I'm feeling confident that in this moment, he is the right guy for the job, even though he wasn't my first choice. He is the guy who's going to take us to daylight. In these last couple of days, I'll tell you, I'm as happy as I can be with the decisions he's made thus far. And we've got a lot of cleaning up to do. Love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Going to take a quick break. When we come back, our good friend Scott Dworkin is going to be here to share some thoughts on, well, some of the executive orders and maybe a little of this as well. Right back.
Nothing more American than workers standing up, and the union gives a voice to win. On the Rick Smith Show.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1959. That was the day the Susquehanna River flooded several mines throughout the Wyoming Valley of Pennsylvania. It marked the virtual end to coal mining in the northern anthracite region, whose coal mines provided some 11,000 jobs. Knox Coal Company, owned by reputed mobster John Scandra, ordered workers to illegally excavate underneath the river to get coal seams near Port Griffith. The company hit the jackpot and mined rich new veins. Even though state regulations mandated a rock cover of 35 feet when tunneling underneath a waterway, theirs was only about 6 feet thick. The roof of Knox Coal's River Slope mine soon collapsed, and a reported 10 billion gallons of water, ice, and debris from the river came smashing through. The collapse created a whirlpool, and dams were built to divert the river. 81 miners were trapped, and many desperately searched for hours for an escape. Some were able to get out through an abandoned air shaft. The bodies of another 12 miners were never recovered. Audrey Beloga-Calvi recalled in an interview that her father, a miner who died in the flooding, predicted trouble at the mine before his death, saying, quote, "When the water would get high, he'd say, 'God, if that river ever breaks in, we'll be drowned like rats.'" 10 were indicted, including the mine's president, Louis Fabrizio, Knox's superintendent, and incredibly, United Mine Workers of America District 1 president and secret partner in the mine, August Lippy. Several would serve prison time. 4 owners were convicted of tax evasion, and 4 local Union 8005 officials were convicted of taking bribes in sweetheart deal contracts, including Lippy. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So as I said, Nancy Pelosi plans to transmit the articles of impeachment against Donald Trump to the Senate on Monday. She confirmed that today, and it's also confirmed, I guess, that the trial is going to begin sometimes around February 8th. And as I said, the visceral part of me is like, no, should have been done already. We should have been there. And then there's the part where I kind of back up, like I said, and say, maybe we do need to take a little bit of time, examine what these treasonous characters pulled on January 6th, and hold Trump fully accountable. And here to share some thoughts on the impeachment, and also the what is this? I love this. 2AT. 2 days after Trump. I've got our good friend Scott Dworkin. He's the co-founder of the Democratic Coalition, also host of the fabulous Dworkin Report. Scott, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, Rick, how are you?
I am good on this second day after Trump. And then look, like I said, I'm hopeful that accountability will happen. I still have my fear that there's no conviction, but I got to tell you, some of the messages that I'm hearing, there's a real possibility that the Republicans could convict him.
I think that's one of the problems. The biggest problem for Trump right now is the fact that it's not over already. Because today it came out, obviously, that I think $2.7 or $3.7 million was paid by Trump's campaign to event organizers. And this is just before. So we're not even talking about day of, leading up to. So I think there's going to be a lot to unpack here. And there's just going to be indisputable evidence. I figured that McConnell probably knew something that we didn't know. And that's why he was getting out in front of it. And as I see things now, I mean, it's clear we always knew that they were involved, but we didn't know how actively involved they were. My guess is that they're going to be arrested. There's going to be people that were involved from the White House that will be arrested. I mean, at this point, there's no way that they weren't involved with like almost every part of it because they wanted it to be a scene. They wanted to cause them to be riled up. I think that this is going to be a really big conspiracy case, and obviously they've already started bringing charges against them. No. But there will be justice in this case for sure. And at the same time, keep in mind that Speaker Pelosi opened 2 special commissions in Congress. One of them has dozens of different investigations into corruption surrounding the coronavirus. And the other one is into Trump's corruption, or what they say, corruption in general. And they're looking into that. So they've already been investigating him on both fronts. And now that we have subpoena power in the House and the Senate, and then we have the White House, you're going to start seeing the truth come out. And I can just say, just from what I've learned in the past 72 hours, like, people are going to prison, period. Like, there's no doubt. I'd say hundreds, if not thousands. Absolutely. Like, it's crazy. The level of corruption is beyond even comprehension.
Well, we got space. We let those people who were convicted of minor drug offenses. If you were you're selling pot, we've got room now. We can get those folks out, bring these people in. But for me, the bigger question, and this is where my mind is now focusing. My mind is focusing, and Trump incited all of this. Yes. They were clearly behind a lot of the organizing. But the bigger part for me is the fact that the commander-in-chief was derelict in his duties. He did not respond for several hours to any of the things that were going on. And for me, that's really I think the most egregious part in all of this is that while the country was under attack, it's been shown that our president was not at the wheel, not at the command, but actually, consuming it. And as the report said, gleeful that his loyalists were out there fighting for him.
Yeah, his negligence has killed hundreds of thousands of Americans already. And this is just another time where his negligence killed somebody. And, I think that, and then there were others killed, obviously, as well. We have to think about this as, it's a terrorist attack, right? And I'm not comparing it to 9/11 on the scale and what happened, maybe the gravity of it. But like in regards to the Capitol building, it was a terrorist attack. So if you think about it in the lines of like, all right, so with 9/11, bin Laden was like the architect of it. He was the one who, got it all together. He was the one who sent the messaging down. He was the one who funded it. He was the one who organized it. that was Trump. Trump was the bin Laden of this Capitol riot terrorist attack. And this is my problem with everything that people are trying to spin it away. Here's the key fact: is none of this would never have happened if he had not told them to go to the Capitol and he hadn't riled them up for 4 years to do so. And keep in mind, they were dragging people at a constant. They were saying, this election's stolen, not on a joking front. They were literally committing fraud in front of the American people. And so the funny thing is, I have a lot of people saying unity, and I understand that, and I'm saying it too, which means unite with us. It means atone, apologize. It means make up for it, make sure that there's accountability for people. Because without justice, there is not going to be any kind of unity in regards to anything, because you're going to be an accomplice.
Exactly. So to your point, and this is where I've taken this position. I go, look, I want unity. We should be looking at this moment as you've said, the country is under attack. We were attacked, and this is like I've said 1,000 times worse than Benghazi was, because this came from inside. As a country, when we're attacked, when these moments happen, we do come together. But we need to come together against the people who perpetrated it. So for me to say, I want unity with the people who are sane and rational, and we want to hold those people accountable. I don't want those people lumped in with the sane and rational of the rest of us. I want them held accountable. And there is no unity with them because those people wanted to overthrow our government.
We aren't trying to unite with traitors. We aren't trying to unite with criminals. We aren't trying to unite and then come to the middle of the road. Well, we'll cage some of the kids. No. We're going to go this route, and we would love it if you join us.
Right.
And that's where we're at with that.
Yeah. So, here's the thing. The last 2 days, Joe Biden has come out and a flurry of executive orders that I argue are good. They're making people's lives better. We're going to get money into people's hands quicker so they can buy food. We're going to put OSHA protections into place to ensure that workers are protected. We're going to do a bunch of things, and really quickly we're going to set up testing sites and vaccination sites and National Production Act. We're going to do all of those things that should have been done almost a year ago. Yes. And we're going to do them immediately now. For me, this is a good thing. And for all those people who say, well, you were complaining when Trump was using an executive order. Yeah, because he was using things to destroy things.
Right. And I think that the power of the pen is being shown, but it shows the experience versus not the inexperience, because Donald Trump didn't actually know how to figure out how to maneuver around the government. He actually didn't have any education, and he didn't want to learn. He just wanted to smash. And so you have Biden's diplomacy already resulting in a 94-2 vote for Secretary of Defense. I mean, after what just happened, really? Like, and get a waiver signed up, and they come up with a deal as the Democrat. I mean, like, everything is coming in place with that, but there's still that tumor on the side there. And that's where the impeachment comes in. But it really, we cannot, I guess, in my mind, we can't move on without everything. Like, every crime needs to be punished. And I know that it takes time and an effort, but we actually don't know who's still left in our government that shouldn't be there.
Right. Because here's the thing. We heard stories, and I don't know if you've got any new information on this, but there were reports that people were giving tours of the Capitol in the days before the 6th of January. Again, I'm not going to say that there was someone who did it or not, because I don't have all the information, but there have been reports. Do you have any information that would confirm that those things actually happened?
No. If they did happen, it'll be on security tape. They'll have roll of it. There were tours per se given, as in people given access to the Capitol building that were related to them, and they easily could have been like taping something. But keep in mind, things have been closed because of COVID for a while now. But they did extend for freshman members. They did let them bring in families and some friends. So that is absolutely a possibility. I think also keep in mind, people can surveil the outside of the Capitol pretty easily. So I would say that, this was not something where they didn't plan the aspects of it. And I would just say that, they didn't need some kind of group taking a tour. They had people on the inside, reps on the inside that were actively supporting them. They were, texting out the location of Speaker Pelosi. She knew what she was doing. They were endangering their lives. They're trying to bring guns onto the House floor. This is all linked to this fake war that they're trying to brew because they've lost, they're losers, they're sore losers, and they're jealous of leading the country in a right way where we can actually pass laws. And all it's going to do is backfire because you want to get rid of that filibuster, then you want to keep acting crazy. And this is, they're going to try and pull what they would say is like the anti-Biden kind of movement or whatever. That it's not a thing. It really isn't a thing because people are sick of it. People are dying. And I think this is all going to backfire on them. And I think you got to get off, like the ship has sunk. And so it's like, do you want to get in? We're basically, we have a life raft. Like, we're like, come join us in the raft, but you have to follow the rules. Like, you can't stab a hole into the raft. Like, you can't eat all of the food. You can't drink all of the water. We have to share. There's got to be rules to the road. But guess who's in charge? And we got I guess the mandate that we've been elected to have, we have to use it. Yeah. And we have to just use that same kind of no mercy, brazen attitude, and deliver for the American people as quickly as possible. And I promise you, President Biden will not stand for anybody in his way. And I promise you, he'll figure out a way through to either navigate it through deals, but there will not be we will not tolerate people that are in our way at this moment. We'll make sure that we push back on campaigns and legislation.
No, he has to act quickly, which is why the talk about the ending the filibuster is now front and center. And look, I'm somebody who says I think we should go back to the original rules of the filibuster. If you want to filibuster something, you take your water jug, you take your empty jug to the floor, you get your material, and you hold the floor of the Senate for as long as you want. You just keep talking, like Mr. Smith going to Washington. And then when you're done, when you have to go to the bathroom or you want a cheeseburger, it ends. We then have a vote. We then move forward. This idea of I filibuster and not knowing who it is and it completely killing things has to stop.
Yeah, there's too much secrecy. I think the important thing is to make sure that, again, when it comes to the rules, we have to change the rules so they work for the American people. We can't just be like, oh, well, this rule's here, so I guess we can't get you money so starve to death in a ditch. Like, no, that's not the Democrats' attitude. That's Democrats years ago, right? Democrats now are forward thinking, and at the same time, remember the resistance is moving forward. That's who got Biden elected, and he knows.
So let me ask you on that. Your thoughts on it. Do they do away with the filibuster and go to a 51 vote majority? And then do you see it possible with people like Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin in the party?
Yeah, I don't think that they'll be able to pull it off, but I do think they'll be able to pull it off. I think with specific bills. I need to look where into. I'm not a wonk and whatnot. So, but I think that they can do it with some bills where they can lift it, and they won't be able to do it totally because I think that they should use every single rule that they possibly can to push everything through as hard as possible. Right now, it seems like they're trying to be open to negotiation to at least lay down, Schumer and McConnell made a deal. But I really think that it's unlikely just based on the rules of what it would take to end it. But on a bill-by-bill basis, it's possible on different large bills, especially stimulus package. If we don't have the votes for that, I'm pretty sure that we'd be able to maneuver it out. But it all depends on each situation.
Right.
What we do need to do is we need to use everything in our power available right now, yesterday, and any kind of rule that we can have that's from the early 1800s. It doesn't matter. Use everything in the book to get everything we need to help the American people right now. People are dying. This isn't a game. This isn't a tweet. Not that tweets are bad or anything, but this is really real life, right. And it's not a cartoon. And we need to stop letting Republicans act like it is.
And to your point, the Republicans have been doing that for years. and they're viewed as strong and and thrifty, and they're playing the game. And Democrats are always mother may I. I've said for years, I want a Democratic Party who's going to be muscular, going to fight the good fight, going to ball up their little digits and get in there and throw a punch occasionally instead of offering to hold somebody's coat. And I'm thrilled to see Joe Biden right out of the gate. And I'll start with the first thing. When he fired Peter Robb from the National Labor Relations Board, that was me going, I love this guy.
And the dude who refused to resign. There was another guy that
That's
was
Peter
there.
Robb and his deputy.
Yeah, and his deputy who refused to resign, right? So both of them, I mean, that's the thing, is flushing out the problems with our government and making sure that's draining the swamp. That is literally draining. That's for real draining the swamp, not installing one of your allies with corporations. It's really a good day for America when we actually have people representing the workers. You saw NEA, the National Education Association, and American Federation of Teachers both meet with First Lady Dr. Jill Biden at the White House, and they were talking about teachers. And I think the comment was, "Teachers, our time is now." It was very inspirational when she said it, and I think that it really shows the difference between the humanity. I mean, literally, Dr. Biden did more on in the first day, the first 24 hours for teachers than the entire Trump administration did over the course of 4 years. And I'm serious. She's done more to benefit them in 24 hours than they did in 4 years. And
to highlight your point, she did something for them, not to them. The last 4 years, it's been doing things to teachers. This is that first moment where we're actually doing things for teachers, and I'm right there with you. We absolutely need it. But here's the thing. We still have this pandemic to go through. We still got a lot of things to get through. Real quick, where do you see these next couple of days going with the administration?
I think it's going to be some tough times because we're going to see some scandals come out from the previous administration. But I think you're going to see clarity because they're going to be completely honest about it. Because it's not really on them. You know what I mean? So I think you're going to see like pretty clear things come out. At the same time, you're going to see other things leveled out. For example, things related to the Khashoggi assassination, things related to Navalny's poisoning, things related to the Russian bounties. I mean, these are things he's confronting immediately. So I would say that everything is going to feel like it's more on track. But this is when reality sinks in, because we see that there's actually something that's killed 430,000 Americans. And this is going to be our wake up call and our reckoning.
Yep. Good stuff.
Up to it,
Yeah, absolutely. Scott, I appreciate the time as always. Good stuff, my friend.
Thank you.
Quick break. Right back after this. Stick around.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1849. That was the birthday of U.S. labor leader Terence Powderly. Powderly was born the second youngest of 12 children to Irish immigrants in Carbondale, Pennsylvania. At the age of 14, he went to work for the Delaware and Hudson Railroad. In 1871, he joined the International Union of Machinists and Blacksmiths. Also involved in local politics, he was elected mayor of Scranton, Pennsylvania 7 years later. Powderly is most well known for his leadership of the Knights of Labor. The Knights of Labor were a new kind of U.S. labor union in the late 1880s. They invited workers to join regardless of their trade or skill. They helped to lead the fight for the 8-hour day. In his autobiography, Powderly described why he was so committed to the labor movement, writing, "5 men in the country controlled the chief interests of 500,000 working men, and can at any moment take the means of livelihood from 2.5 million souls." The goal of the Knights of Labor was to give voice to those 500,000 souls. By 1879, Powderly rose to become the Grand Master Workman, the highest leader of the Knights. Powderly was weary of strikes as a tactic for labor. Yet, despite these personal qualms, the Knights led several successful strikes under his leadership, including one against railroad tycoon Jay Gould. The Knights grew to represent 700,000 workers across the nation. But then, the Haymarket tragedy occurred when a bomb was thrown by an unknown assailant at a workers' rally in Chicago in 1886. In the aftermath of Haymarket, there was a national backlash against labor unions. The Knights bore the brunt as membership dropped by nearly 90%. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So as I said there, I was immediately thrilled on day one when Joe Biden said to Peter Robb, I'll have your resignation now. And when he said no, he said, well, good, because you're fired. I thought that was good. And then his deputy, she wanted to say, well, I'm here. And he's like, no, you're not here either. To me, that was the sign. I was expecting the entrance like we saw with President Obama, where, precedent, and we're just going to let this go. We'll wait it out. I'm thrilled to see that he's coming in and acting immediately. Good sign as far as I'm concerned. And here to share some thoughts on what the first day and a half has looked like, I've asked our good friend Max Burns to come talk with us. Max is a Democratic strategist, also national columnist over at the Daily Beast. Max, thanks for taking time for us.
Thanks for having me.
So day one, a flurry of executive orders. And of course, my favorite part of it is the firing of Peter Robb, which I had been calling for in the weeks running up to. So it's nice to see that someone was listening. But to me, I'm excited that it appears that Sleepy Joe, as Trump called him, is not so sleepy and taking extremely decisive action.
It looks like it. I mean, anyone who had this idea that Joe Biden might not know what he wanted to do or struggle to prioritize all these challenges really is going to have to eat those words. And as we saw during the primary, the big question was, can Joe Biden represent the left? Will he sell the left out on the environment, on immigration reform? And the answer we can now say is no. On his first day, we see the Keystone XL pipeline is gone. We're back in the Paris Agreement. The president ordered the Office of Management and Budget to essentially shred Donald Trump's pro-polluter executive orders over the past 4 years. And most interestingly, there's a plan now where secretaries will report back to the president in 60 days with a full list of recommendations on how we can advance environmental, economic, and racial justice in every aspect of what we do as a government. And that alone is going to be a huge moment for progressives. It's something they've fought for a long time, and it's great to see it happening.
No, I'm right there with you. No, and like I said, I had feared, and this is the reason during the primary I was not on the Biden bandwagon from the beginning. And I'll be honest, he was fourth on my list. But I'm now in this. He's the right guy for the moment, because I do think he understands the gravity of the moment. And I got to wonder, how much of January 6th had to play into this, or if this was going to be the plan all along. But I'm thrilled to see that he's doing it.
And January 6th certainly seems to have solidified the resolve, not just of Joe Biden, but of a lot of people in government to get moving on addressing some of these problems. I was talking about in the environment earlier, but we now have government protection for DACA kids again. We have an end to Donald Trump's inhumane immigration policies. We have the Department of Justice looking into potential misuse of office by senior officials who were more concerned about helping Donald Trump than they were about helping the country. And we're finally seeing this long overdue accountability from a president who does not want to waste any time and is moving on orders on sending legislation to the House and the Senate at a much faster clip than even Barack Obama did in his first couple of days.
Yeah, but I got to say, I go back to 2009 when Barack Obama became president. The country was in an economic free fall. We were losing 1 million jobs a month. It was a crisis, and I think everybody was, in a certain set of mind. I think January 6th put us in another kind of frame of mind that the country's under attack while our economy is struggling and going down. It's not the economic free fall that 2009 was, but I would argue this is almost worse because you had a recalcitrant Republican Party who said no to everything. And the reason we didn't get a bigger, chunkier stimulus to help us get through it faster is because the Republicans were saying no.
No, absolutely. Obstruction is all that the Republicans have left right now. We've seen Mitch McConnell just today saying that he acknowledges, of course, that Joe Biden won, that the Democrats control the Senate. But in the name of unity, we should basically give Republicans a veto over every major policy position Joe Biden would like to make law. What we've seen, though, with the president is that he wants to move now on the environment, on COVID especially. And he's willing to work with Democrats and Republicans in Congress. But if they slow things down and if Republicans obstruct, Biden will use the executive pen aggressively to push as much relief as he can. And I think more than Donald Trump by far, Joe Biden is going to be able to go out into the country and build actual movement coalitions to pressure Congress towards meaningful COVID reform. Right. That's something we haven't seen since the Obama days. And it's something that I think Congress is not quite ready for.
No, I mean, especially on the pandemic front, because day one there were something like 10 executive orders on just the pandemic and the relief, and most of it, I would say, probably 9 of the 10, or probably all 10 of them, were all things that should have been done 6, 8, 10 months ago. So, I was saying, look, this is what functional government looks like. This is what, when the adults take the pen and take the room over, this is what happens. And hopefully we get through this quicker because of it. But this is one of those moments I think we need to learn the lessons. We've been hearing for 40 years that government's bad. Government can't do anything. We shouldn't let government do anything. And when Republicans take control, they show us that government can't work. Well, at least Republican government.
That's absolutely right. And I think the one thing you can say about it is that from Ronald Reagan and Richard Nixon to George W. Bush and Donald Trump, Republicans have given Democrats a lot of hands-on experience protecting this country from imminent economic and racial justice and global health crises. These are the people we call in to fix the messes. And Joe Biden has understood, especially on COVID, what I think is critical to know is that infrastructure is the key. We can make all the vaccines we want, but if there's no infrastructure to get those to states, and if the states have no funding and no infrastructure to deliver them into people's arms, we haven't done any good for anybody. And though we're a year late getting started on this plan, it seems that Joe Biden has come into the White House with a full plan in place and is already acting to implement whatever parts he can absent Congress.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I mean, everything that he put into place, and I was talking about this yesterday, was basically, dummies for pandemics. It's the stuff that you need to do to get through it. And I remember, Trump at one point had said that they were going to use the military to get the vaccines out. Whatever happened to that? I mean, I want to give Trump credit for something. I'm really trying to look for something because I know there are a lot of Trump supporters out there going, well, you're not giving him credit for anything. I'm trying, man. I'm trying to find something to give him credit for. But even something as simple of going, that they can hold rifles, they can hold a syringe. That seems pretty simple to me.
Follow through has always been the Trump administration's problem. And we are so fortunate now to have not just a president, but also a cabinet and an executive staff that has experience actually turning policy into law and law into actual on-the-ground deployment. Because like you said, Donald Trump had great plans. There was the Kushner plan that was going to come out on how the federal government and private companies could work together to get this out. Amazon was going to do it. As it turns out from reporting today, they never even wrote the cover for that report. It just didn't exist. And so not only are we building things from the ground up on day one, but we're bringing in people who actually understand how to get these things done. And that's going to be so crucial over the next 100 days.
No, that's an excellent point because Trump always, if I remember right, Trump always said that he was an ideas guy. He came up with these great ideas. He left it to everybody else to fill in all of the enormous amount of details. But and I go back to the Herman Cain, who died from the coronavirus, who said that every piece of legislation would be 2, maybe 3 pages long, which again shows that kind of lack of detail in how we have to, in such a large country, deal with all of the problems and all of the things that arise. So for me, this is one of those moments where I hope we relearn what good governance looks like, and that we then hold Joe Biden and the Democrats accountable. Because look, I said from the beginning, I'll be as hard on him as I was on Donald Trump when he messes up. But when he does the right thing, I'm going to point it out.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it all comes down to the team. And we've seen from the White House press secretary's briefings this week that we have someone who's very committed to transparency, to keeping the press and the American people apprised of what's happening. And as Dr. Fauci said the other day, of admitting when they don't know something and saying, we will talk to the experts and get back to you, instead of just lying. This is going to be an adjustment for the press that have kind of normalized Trump's ability to just speak nonsense from the podium. But over time, I think we will appreciate having a president who respects us enough to tell us the truth about the challenges of this pandemic.
Yeah. Were you surprised? I mean, I sat and I watched Jen Psaki's press conference, and I'm going, come on, where's the lie? Come on. When's the lie coming? And there was no lie. And I'm going, I feel cheated now. I've been so expecting to get lied to. What are the fact checkers going to do now?
Well, I'll tell you, there's still plenty of things that we can hold the White House accountable on. There's plenty of things that need to get done quickly that may end up getting delayed. But you're absolutely right. I mean, I've watched these, and I was saying to several colleagues of mine, not only by the standard of the Trump administration, but by the standard of all of her colleagues in the press room, the press secretary did a phenomenal job and has come into this perhaps stronger than almost any press secretary that I can remember. And that's going to make a difference because the White House has a lot of credibility building to do. And they're not going to do that by lying. They're not going to do that by pretending to have the answers. They're going to have to level with people. And that's one of the reasons people like Joe Biden.
Yeah, he's a straight shooter. Now, we keep talking about, these executive orders. There's only so far you can go with these executive orders. Legislation is going to have to be passed. And in a 50-50 divide, with a filibuster still in place, nothing's going to get done. Unless there's something that goes on. Do you see us, bogged down in gridlock over the next year and no real agenda gets passed through? Do you see some kind of negotiating going on? How do you see the legislative part of this moving us forward?
I think Joe Biden can't help but negotiate. He's a natural lifelong senator. He loves to get in and talk about this. But what we saw from Jen Psaki today was that the president is going to be very coy about where he stands on the filibuster. He's said previously he does not support removing it. She said today that thinking hasn't changed, but there is increasing pressure in the Senate to do it. And Biden's message through the White House press office is clear. He trusts the Senate to do their job the way that they think is best. And if they decide to get rid of the filibuster, I don't think you would see Joe Biden out there complaining about it.
Yeah, see, I'm in these polar opposite views. One, the filibuster has so screwed over any progress for labor law reform over the years. During the Carter years, there was an attempt to repeal Taft-Hartley that would have helped union density and helped close the inequality gap. During the Clinton years, Bob Dole individually filibustered a strike replacement bill. Every step forward, Republicans have filibustered. And they've done it in a way that with these silent filibusters who you never know who it is because they're never accountable for it. I'm of the mindset of, I know we can't do away with it because I don't believe in the live by the sword, die by the sword mentality. But I do think if you're going to filibuster, you get your water jug, you get your empty jug, you get your books, you get whatever, and you take to the floor and you hold the Senate floor for as long as you can filibuster if it means that much that we don't get progress. But this idea that we can put a hold on things from secrecy, complete nonsense.
And Republicans are supporting this largely because they know without the filibuster, they can't fight on the strength of their ideas. They have no ideas. None of the policies that Mitch McConnell has proposed could get 51 votes from a Democratic Senate, because they're policies that are essentially just holdovers from Donald Trump, from George W. Bush, that didn't work 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and don't work now. I too have mixed feelings. I'm a big fan of procedure, but I think right now our country is in an unprecedented time, and we have the flexibility in our system to make this change. We shouldn't be afraid to do it.
No, I'm right there with you. And again, I go back to January 6th. This was a moment where our country was under attack. And we're under attack in multiple ways. We've got this movement from within, these terrorists from within. We've got a global pandemic that we can't see, and we've got foreign adversaries who are hacking us and doing all the things that they've done over the years. We as a country need to unite more than ever, and this is where I would hope that our Republican senators would be statesmen and not political hacks, and come together and figure out how to fix this stuff and move us forward. You know, when we're fat and happy and everyone's employed and our infrastructure's rebuilt and the virus is gone and we don't have any hungry kids going to bed and we've got vets who have places to go sleep at night, then we can bicker and then we can fight. Until then, we got work to do.
And the Republicans, unfortunately, rediscovered their fear of the debt and spending on January 20th at noon. And it's going to be on Joe Biden to sell his policies and his view, not just to the Senate, but also to the American people. Because this election showed us the power of the American people to make sweeping changes when they feel they're necessary. And if anyone can harness that coalition again, it's going to be Joe Biden and a more empowered, more optimistic Democratic Party.
Yeah, it's amazing how predictable that now we care about the debt and deficits, and now we're preaching austerity. But during the Trump years, when we were giving massive handouts to the very wealthy, kind of forgot about it. Crazy, just crazy stuff. It truly
is. And it says this idea that it's not even consistent, as we know. It's let's cut spending, let's go into austerity. Except we need to improve the defense budget, except we need to expand subsidies to oil and gas producers, except we need to subsidize coal and industrial agriculture. But honestly, I think the American people see through this nonsense. And the 2020 election proved that the old GOP talking points just simply don't scare people into voting Republican the same way they used to. And if the scare tactics don't work, the GOP's in real trouble because they have no ideas.
Yeah, last question I've got for you, because, clearly we got a lot of work to do. Clearly there are going to be more executive orders and there's going to be more of this. In the coming week, what is it that you're going to be paying attention to as the national columnist over at the Daily Beast? Where are your eyes focused in the coming days on how things are going to transpire?
So the White House has made clear that Joe Biden is going to have a very tight domestic agenda, at least for the foreseeable future until COVID is under control. So what I want to see next is the real shape of Biden's recovery legislation, whether we're going to have robust retroactive unemployment assistance for those who've been out of work, whether we're going to have some sort of monthly direct stimulus to families, because we still have millions of Americans at risk of losing their homes in just a couple of weeks. So this is a situation where not just in lives, but also in financial stability, in children's ability to go to school uninterrupted, we have days or weeks to get it together and act. And Joe Biden has shown his willingness to do that. It's up to the Senate and the House now to get it done. Time
to get to work and get things done. Max, I appreciate the time. Keep up the great work. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Max Burns, Democratic strategist, national daily columnist over at the Daily Beast. Good stuff. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.
Hello, I'm David Philman, Executive Director of AFSCME Council 13, the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. A union of over 1.4 million strong and growing, AFSCME is gaining improvements in the workplace all across America. And right here in the Commonwealth, more than 95,000 AFSCME members make Pennsylvania happen. Highways, libraries, hospitals, parks, offices, prisons, classrooms, museums, courtrooms. You'll find AFSCME members at work in all these places and many more.
I make Pennsylvania happen every day.
I make Pennsylvania happen every day.
Today's AFSCME members take on public service jobs as diverse as they are, not for the recognition, but for a better Pennsylvania. For more information, please visit our website at AFSCME13.org. Labor is changing, so is your labor union. We are AFSCME.
The ransacking and terrorizing of Congress by violent trumpeteers is an outrage, right? Even Republican congressional leaders have rushed to assail the mob invasion, calling it a desecration of America's democratic ideals. For example, the GOP Senate leader, Mitch McConnell, denounced the invading outsiders as thugs, lecturing that self-government, quote, requires a shared commitment to truth and shared respect for the ground rules of our system. But wait, what about the insider mob? The lawmakers who routinely run roughshod over our ideals of equality and justice. So many of the pious members who are now so prissily crying out for decorum and respect for the process openly solicit special interest cash to do favors for the donors, while ignoring the basic needs of workaday people they supposedly represent. Excuse me, Mitch, but for the past 4 years, weren't you Trump's most destructive Machiavellian monkey wrencher in Congress? Yes, you were, relentlessly stomping on truth and rigging legislative ground rules to ram his plutocratic, autocratic agenda into law. You even stoked his depraved narcissism. For weeks after it was clear that Joe Biden had won the presidency, you cynically fed Trump's fantasy that he had won, helping spread a furious disunity across America. The mob that you deplore for rampaging into your inner sanctum of power and privilege is of your own making. They're your angry political chickens coming home to roost. It's a scream and a disgrace to see not only McConnell but also self-aggrandizing icks like Ted Cruz now posing as righteous statesmen. Cruz unctuously proclaimed, "We must come together and put this anger and division behind us." This is Jim Hightower saying, so let's also shine the light of justice on the mob of insider elites who so selfishly continue desecrating American democracy.
Hightower's commentaries are brought to you by the Hightower Lowdown, the monthly newsletter with Hightower's take on what Wall Street and Washington are up to. For information, visit hightowerlowdown.org.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So it looks like the early data coming out of the UK is that this new variant of the coronavirus could actually be more deadly. Because originally they're saying, no, it's going to be much more contagious, but survivability going to be, much better. Ultimately, it's going to kill more people, but more people are going to have it, so it'll be a smaller percentage. They're now saying, it may actually also be associated with a higher death mortality as well. So we will see how this plays out. But again, as I said, I now feel a lot better having the adult in the room. I now feel better with the guy who believes that the federal government can act and is willing to wield the power to make sure that things do get done. I think it's a good thing. And here to share some thoughts, I've asked our good friend Brett Pransky to come share some thoughts on, where we are, where we're going, and what's going on. Brett, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, I look at this and, not good news that the virus is actually just as bad if the new variant if what this data is saying is true.
Yeah, that's right. And it looks like it might not just be a little more dangerous in terms of the mortality rate and things like that, but also much more contagious. We could be looking at some real trouble here. But from what I understand, we haven't necessarily discovered that any of these new virus strains are in any way more resistant to the vaccines or anything like that. So I still think if we can get the vaccines out at a proper rate and a proper clip, we can mitigate some of this, some of this additional harm.
No, and that's, to me, again, as I said, the executive orders that came out yesterday, of which I guess there were 10 of them, doing a whole bunch of things from distribution to setting up testing sites to setting up sites for for mass vaccinations, all really smart, good things that should have been done months ago. And I keep coming back to this, and I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but Donald Trump said from the beginning they were going to use the military to disperse this stuff. And I go, at the time, I go, that's probably not a bad idea. We all hands on deck. Whoever we can get, we get veterinary assistants. They know how to handle a needle. Let's get them sticking people. We didn't do any of that stuff.
Yeah, and that seemed really strange because what we know about Donald Trump is he's a praise seeker. He wants to be told how great and how wonderful he is, and he loves to wield power. Why he would whiff on an opportunity to play the hero like this, I mean, just for selfish reasons. Now, forget about the fact that it was also the right thing to do, but it was also an opportunity for people to see the president, acting in a way that the president should. And the fact that he would just decide not to even make an attempt was really strange. And it's much worse than we originally thought, because what the team is saying now, the team who has to kind of pick this up and try to carry the football over into the end zone, is saying that they don't even have anything to change. They don't have a plan to edit or to remake or to revise or to add on to or to make better in some way. They have nothing. They're building the entire distribution system from scratch, which is just terrifying.
But ultimately, I mean, if where my mind is going is, maybe that's not a horrible thing at this moment, because maybe they didn't set up something that was terrible that you'd have to break down and get past that. Well, this isn't how we did it before. Now you're starting from scratch, and maybe with the resources we're going to put into it, we can mobilize. I'm being really hopeful here.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice if there was some kind of system, even a bad system in place, and we could approve on. Because then at least there would be something there. But in terms of a national response, it's the cupboard is bare. No.
One of the executive order, or actually two of the executive orders that came out, are specifically at workers. And one of the things I've said from the very beginning is we need to extend OSHA protections to people on the job so that they actually have a policy on how to deal with this to keep workers safe in the workplace. And also he's going to extend unemployment benefits to people who voluntarily say, look, I don't want to go work in unsafe working conditions. I'm willing to stay home. I'm going to choose to stay home and collect unemployment as opposed to going into an unsafe workplace. I think that's really smart and really the way we should be going, where we should have been going all along.
Right. This was something that bothered me very early on in the pandemic when we were first talking about workplaces, especially certain kinds of workplaces, the meatpacking plants and things like that. Or one of the very first things we did is we agreed to hold these companies blameless for the deaths and for the harm and the sickness that happens in their workplaces. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, this is going to get bad. Because if you give a company an opportunity to make money and to do so without any risk, the first thing they're going to do is put people at risk. It's simply what they do.
Yep.
Except in cases where the workers have protections, and union members and things like that who get a chance to fight back against these things. Anywhere that doesn't have this kind of help is going to be put at serious risk. And now we have a situation where some of these folks who choose not to be in that environment are being refused their benefits. They're being seen as people who voluntarily quit and things like, which is just not the right way to look at it. And there's a number of different ways that these companies will handle this kind of thing. For example, a company may put you into a position where you could potentially be in danger if they want to get rid of you and they also don't want to pay your benefits. They'll put you in that hard decision, hope you make the decision that lets them say you quit, and then they go and withhold your benefits and challenge your claims and things like that. And some companies are pretty devious about it.
No, absolutely. And we've heard horror stories throughout all of this. But the fact that, Biden, the administration's coming out and saying, look, workers have a federal guaranteed right to refuse employment that's going to jeopardize their health. And if they do so, they'll still be qualified for unemployment insurance. I think that's really important. And now the second part of this that I'm hoping then comes is that we extend additional unemployment benefits to those folks so that they don't lose wages. I've been saying from the beginning, if we want to take people out of the workforce and let them protect themselves, they shouldn't go broke for doing it. Look, if you want to go and you want to expose yourself to it, that's your choice, and I'm almost okay with that. But give people an actual choice to pull out of it. It's that old thing about the free market. The most important part of a free market is the ability to not have to participate, and this is part of that.
Right, and in some of these cases, we have to worry about folks. There's a lot of folks out there who have to miss extended time at work, even if they are able and capable and so on, because they have to take care of relatives who are sick or, and things of that nature. Or there's other people out there who, fearing that they're going to lose their job, will take the illness into the workplace. And so there's just all kinds of risks that we could mitigate, by just being decent to these folks and by giving them the option. Hey, if you're ill, if someone in your house is ill, or if you think that you could potentially get ill, if you go to work, or if you are in a particular risk group. For example, I've got an older brother who's a teacher. When we were kids, he had the most crushing case of asthma you've ever seen. Now, he grew out of it as a kid and he's been fine as an adult, but he's in a high risk category. And, and now he's being put back in the classroom in a place where, where he's in real danger, and he should have more choices than he does, and so should everybody else.
No, and I'm right there with you. And this is where I'm hoping this administration is going to be moving us, because, these next couple of months are going to be the most deadly. And this isn't a shock. There's no surprise here. We were talking about this back in March and April, that right now, what we're going to be living through these next couple of months, we're going to be the really dangerous parts. And we had all summer long to deal with how we were going to fight the virus during this time. And we wasted that time. We squandered it with bickering. We squander it with allowing right-wing militia groups to have their exercises by storming capitals. We wasted it. And now we're going to pay the consequences.
Right. And we're going to pay the consequences collectively, but we're not going to be able to hold anyone individually accountable, because one of the terrible things about these massive numbers of deaths, we're up over, I think it was 418,000 today, something like that, is where we're at. That's just a massive number, but we can't really put our finger on this death. This death here is connected to this event where you came in contact with this person due to this person's influence and so on. We can't trace it back with that, with that kind of accuracy. And because we can't, the people who are responsible, many times are going to get off the hook for it when they really shouldn't. Right. And it's just kind of when the problem gets this big and this large, and you could get the virus from just about anywhere. And this is where, some of these employers willing to put their employees at risk are actually going to benefit from this inability to really put a finger on what the true source is. And it's going to be hard after the fact to hold these folks accountable. And that's just terrible.
And to highlight your point, though, you see those stories all over the place, but we know that on January 6th, there are more than 20 police officers at the Capitol police officers who now have coronavirus because of that event. And you got to wonder, here in another week or two, or in the next couple of days, are we going to see that massive spread because of that super spreader event?
Well, it would seem that we would, because we just look at the activities. The things they were doing. It wasn't. They weren't spacing themselves out. They weren't wearing masks, and they were doing a lot of heavy breathing on each other. You know what I mean? So it's very likely that if there's virus anywhere in that crowd, it's spread around, in a pretty large way. And so that was certainly a super spreader event. Now think about the fact these folks came from all over the place. Yeah. They hopped back on their private jets and took it to every state in the nation. And so it's. It just couldn't possibly be a worse set of circumstances.
No, you're absolutely right. But here's the thing is, and I go back to the masks in the Capitol. Why, while you're committing treason, wouldn't you wear at least a damn mask for that? I mean, I'm going, I'm watching these people and they've got their faces out there and I'm going, this is where you should be wearing a mask. I know it's a political statement in your world to wear one that you're weak or whatever, follower or whatever, but you're committing crimes. Wouldn't while committing your crimes, maybe not doing it on your social media, maybe not use your cell phone, maybe use a burner, and maybe cover your mug up so that maybe you got a chance of not going to jail?
Yeah, there's a really there's a great scholar out there by the name of Tim Wise who does this lecture that he calls the Pathology of White Privilege, which is about how the privilege that you have can actually harm you, in very direct ways. And so what we had here was a group of people committing an insurrection, and they actually thought that they were just going to get to go home at the end of it. You know what I mean? That kind of bloated privilege, it made them think that, well, of course I can do this. Of course there won't be any problem if I storm the Capitol. You know what I mean? And it's really kind of, it'd be funny if it wasn't so sad. You know what I mean? That these folks think they can do that and just go home. I'm going to hop back on my private jet, and I'm going to do a video while I'm in there, and I'm going to make sure that I plug my real estate company while I'm at it. Some of this stuff, like I said, if it wasn't so unbelievably tragic, it would be hilarious. All right. But this is what what some of this ridiculous privilege can do. Think about the mindset you have to think you can do this and just nobody's going to mind. That you're just going to go back and you're just going to go golfing the next day because you know what? Yeah, we go to the Capitol when we feel like it. We just commit a little light treason, then we go home. It's treason. Absolutely stunning. And you can tell there's only a certain subset of us who actually believes they can do that. And we saw it on display. And that's why they didn't wear their masks. They wanted people to know who they were because they didn't actually think any consequences were ever going to come. And seeing them realize that that's not the case, seeing them realize that their privilege only goes so far and it's not going to protect them to the point of committing treason, and watching them get rounded up at the airport was just glorious. I watched those videos over and over and over again, watching them break down and cry and yell and, oh, you're ruining my life. And the one lady who was like, oh, I was just trying to commit a little treason and they maced me. That was so mean of them. It's like, you got to be kidding me. I can't stop watching these videos because they're so satisfying.
Yeah, she's my favorite. And the guy asked her, why were you doing it? It's a revolution. And who told you that? The guy at the top. And this is one of those things where, yeah, I want all of those nitwits and morons and malcontents to be held accountable. I want to see them perp walked into court and given nice shiny new pinstripe suits to be put at the Gray Barrow Hotel at our expense. But we got to go higher than that. And I've been saying, you got to get the Josh Hawleys and the Ted Cruzes and the Lauren Boeberts and more importantly the Donald Trump, who was derelict of duty. He, in a moment of the country being under attack, our commander in chief was AWOL.
Right, and I remember, all the way back to 9/11, there was a lot of anger at President Bush because when he was first notified of the attack, he seemed to sit still for a few minutes, and he didn't get up and run out of the room right away. And we just tap danced on him for that inaction. Yep. Donald Trump actually held the National Guard back. You know what I mean? He was actually responsible for why the help didn't come for a lot longer than, I think it was like 7 minutes or something like that we were all hot and bothered about George Bush, for. And, he held them back for a long time and let these people just run through the Capitol. Not to mention with help of some of our crazier members of Congress who seem to be, giving them directions, certainly prep them for it the day before. And in some cases, there were folks who even live tweeted the location of the Speaker of the House as it was going on. A little time is going to pass, the investigation is going to happen, but I think the number of heads that are going to roll over this is going to be a significant number.
I sure hope so.
And it should be bigger.
Now, do you think that it's easy to armchair quarterback Pelosi and her decision to hand the articles of impeachment over on Monday, and Schumer's decision to wait till February 8th? And as I said at the beginning, I'm somebody who says this should have been over by now. The gavel should be falling. Do you agree with their decision?
I kind of grudgingly agree with their decision, because all of us, everybody was like, this should be done right now. He should have been impeached by sunup the next morning. And we all feel that way. All of us feel that way. But the reality is that these things do take time. It probably took a significant amount of time just to write the article itself. You know what I mean? And so, some of these things and some of the delays, while they are frustrating, the simple fact of the matter is, probably in the neighborhood of 4,000 people are going to die today from the virus, and we're still not getting the vaccines out. So the idea that in any other circumstance, I would be like, I'd be screaming mad about the fact that it hasn't already happened, that it hasn't already happened twice. But given the circumstances and the severity of what's going on, and just how many things we have to prioritize, in the simple fact that he is at this moment gone, and no longer an immediate threat, or at least seems not to be an immediate threat. I think I can grudgingly say, okay, I understand.
So given that frame,
let's get some shots in people's arms.
Right. So, but given that frame that you just said, well, he's gone now, and we can let it go. Why not just go? He's gone now. Let's just move on. Let's get to work, because this is what the right is telling us. In the name of unity, we have to move past this. Why not do that?
Well, because ex-presidents have certain perks. You know what I mean? Do you want to be giving intelligence reports to Donald Trump for the rest of his life?
Yeah, but he's never going to read those. He didn't read the ones while he was in the White House.
Yeah, sure, but he can put them in an envelope and send them to people we don't like very much. You know what I mean? And those are there is real damage that he could do. Not to mention, even if he has no plans to run in 4 years, or if he's not able to run in 4 years because we find a way to lock him up, as he probably should be. The simple fact that it's a possibility that he's not barred from holding office again would give him the grounds to start this new party he's been talking about, and start up his whole Trump media empire and so on. It would all be built on the promise that in 4 years I'm going to be back.
See, now,
and you can't give him that.
Yeah, but here's the thing. There's part of me that goes, and this is just the part of me that goes, I would love to see Trump start his own party. And I would love to see the half of the Republicans go over with him and half go there, so we never have to worry about them again. They literally will eat each other.
Yeah, let him start a new party and divide the Republicans between between just the evil and the crazy. You know what I mean? And let them be their two wings of it. Let them vote for Donald Trump or Puff the Magic Dragon or whoever the hell they want to vote for. Let them have a good time with it. So, I'd be fine with that. But the simple fact is that he would be a real danger. And there's a real possibility that if he were to start this party, then they're not just going to wait for election time. We're going to see them at our state houses. We're going to see them at protests, and we're going to see them committing acts of violence and so on. And some of the things that we've been seeing for the past year, I don't think they would be inactive until election time.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because today it came out that the White House has launched this comprehensive threat assessment on domestic extremism. And I think both of us know people who have arsenals in their basement and have this kind of mentality that they're waiting to for when the government comes, that we're gonna whatever, they water the tree of liberty with the blood of tyrants and patriots. The things they wear on their T-shirts. Is this a moment where we start looking at these groups finally? We've known they've been around for a long time, but looking at these people who have the arsenals, who have the sniper rifles, who have all of the military type armament that you would expect for someone going into a war, do we start looking at those people and going, do we really need to have these people around us?
Yeah, we got to be careful, because the type of weaponry they can get their hands on is pretty silly. And when you think about the folks who tend, and again, I don't want to generalize the entire group, but the people who tend to make up these groups of gun collecting, militia loving zealots, they tend to be folks who things didn't quite work out for them. The way that they do for some folks. Call it mediocrity, call it whatever you like, but they have a tendency to come from somewhat humble humble beginnings. And sometimes, especially if you think you're supposed to live a life greater than the life you've lived, you can have these kind of blaze of glory fantasies. I can't tell you how many of these folks, they can't wait to say, come and take it. They can't wait to say, tell you what they'll do to you if you step on their property, or you know what I mean? Or they can't wait to make threats about, about all the different ways that they'd go out like Rambo would go out. You know what I mean? And so some of this is just kind of ridiculous tough talk, but I'm sure not all of it is. And you can't really tell the ones who are serious apart from the rest of them. And so, yeah, we need to really look at these folks, because some of them are going to make good on these threats.
Yep. No, that's the scary part. And look, I've got great hope for this administration. I'm happy to see so far the moves that Joe Biden has made. He's been decisive and aggressive, and I think that is fantastic. I want to change gears for a second before we wrap up. Today, baseball legend Hank Aaron died at the age of 86. And he was somebody I remember seeing as a kid at the tail end of his career. But this was a great baseball player and I guess a great person as well, right?
Yeah, from what I understand, that he went through an awful lot. I haven't read his autobiography, but I hear that it's an absolute game changer. Talking about the things he went through and how he had to sometimes leave out the back door of the stadium and things like that, and some of the names he was called, and just the overall harassment, the threats, and just the sheer number of threats that he got throughout his entire career and what it did to him and so on. But also he happened to be one of the greatest players in the history of the game. I mean, I did a little growing up in Atlanta when I was a kid, and it was just after his time. It was back in the old powder blue uniform days, if you remember those. But, local hero and just someone who was just, revered up and down throughout the community. And I heard a really interesting call today that because the Atlanta Braves have a team name that's pretty objectionable to a lot of folks. They don't like the name, and they used to do the old tomahawk chop and things like that, and that's something that we didn't like. I've heard people today say that that it might be a good idea to rename the team after him. The Hammers, or or something like that. It would be an unbelievably huge tribute and also solve one of the team's big marketing problems at the same time.
Yeah, well, may he rest in peace. Sad day, but you're right. Maybe that's a good start. Maybe it is a good start. But Brett, I appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much.
All right, thanks for having me.
Our good friend Brett Pransky. Love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I'm going to take a quick break. Right back. Stick around.
Saving work in America, one show at a time. The Rick Smith Show.
A cry for survival comes from the planet itself. A cry that can't be any more desperate or any more clear.
Green News Report special coverage. Democratic President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris take office, renewing hope for meaningful U.S. climate action.
All of that hope and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
Stop the shouting and lower the temperature.
I don't think he was talking about climate there, but it sounds like a good plan anyway. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, after 4 long, horrible, treacherous, dangerous years, we finally have a new president in the White House and maybe some hope for climate action? Really?
Yep, maybe some hope for climate action. Donald Trump is gone from the White House, but he did do plenty of damage over that hellishly long 4-year term, damage that new Democratic President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris moved swiftly to begin repairing in their first hours after the inauguration on Wednesday. In his inaugural address, President Biden called for Americans to unite to solve the nation's 4 major simultaneous crises: the COVID-19 pandemic, the ailing economy, racial injustice, and
a climate in crisis. Are we going to step up, all of us? It's time for boldness, for there's so much to do. We will be judged, you and I, by how we resolve these cascading crises of our era.
After the ceremonies were over, Biden went to work, signing a host of environment-related executive orders and actions, with more to be issued in coming days and weeks. The actions amount to a stark rebuke of Trump's destructive approach to the environment and energy that increased deadly water and air pollution, dismantled U.S. climate policy, and decimated federal environmental standards and enforcement, all to primarily benefit polluting industries.
Primarily? I would say solely. Who the hell else was it supposed to benefit?
Biden's immediate orders on Wednesday included rescinding the permit for the controversial Keystone XL tar sands pipeline from Canada.
Excellent.
A temporary moratorium on oil and gas leasing in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge that Trump recently opened up to development.
Also excellent.
And a big one internationally, beginning the process of rejoining the United Nations Paris Climate Agreement, which commits the U.S. to cutting its greenhouse gas emissions. That process will take 30 days. But as environmental journalist David Roberts notes, the pledge to rejoin the Paris Agreement is really better thought of as a pledge to enact domestic carbon policy to meet the U.S. commitment.
Yeah, exactly.
And to that end, Biden will issue more climate-related directives in coming weeks. Some of them could take years to be implemented, requiring action from Congress or the lengthy federal agency rules process. The list includes a sweeping order for federal agencies to review more than 100 public health and environmental standards that Trump eliminated or weakened, like restricting science in federal assessments, allowing logging roads to be built in Alaska's Tongass National Forest. Biden plans to restore standards for vehicle fuel economy and tailpipe emissions, standards for methane emissions for oil and gas drilling, and money-saving energy efficiency standards for appliances and buildings. He's also going to review boundaries for national monuments that were slashed by the Trump administration, like the Bears Ears National Monuments. Those are actions that Biden can issue on his own authority, but to achieve meaningful, durable climate action, Biden must get Congress on board to immediately pass his $1.9 trillion COVID emergency relief package, which would set the nation on the path to an economy-wide transition to clean energy and reaching net zero carbon emissions by 2050.
Now, some would say, what does a COVID relief bill have to do with climate change or the environment?
It includes provisions to revive the economy with green jobs and building infrastructure, because green jobs are a great way to rebuild the economy.
Gotcha.
But Democrats have only a razor-thin majority in the House and a one-vote majority in the Senate, with Vice President Kamala Harris as the tiebreaker. Republicans are already against all of it. And congressional midterm elections are less than 2 years from now in 2022. And if Republicans win either house of Congress, they can obstruct everything.
Oh, they can obstruct everything anyway. That said, they can use the reconciliation process to pass a whole bunch of this stuff in the Senate with a simple majority rather than having to defeat a filibuster. And we can get those green jobs.
Yes. So for now, Biden's inauguration marks a turning point, giving the U.S. and the world a fighting chance against climate change.
Of course, Joe Manchin will have to go along with it in the Senate, but we'll cross that coal-loving bridge when we get to it. For much more on all of this and the stories we couldn't get to, thanks to the inauguration, check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Find, follow, and share us planet-wide on the Facebooks and the Twitters at Green News Report. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So the more, and look, get ready for a bunch of these stories to start just flooding out. But this one grabbed my attention. Evidently, the guy who's the head of the American Conservative Union, this Matt Schlapp guy, he's also the guy who puts on the CPAC every year, the Conservative Political Action Conference. Evidently, this guy, Parker Pete Pettit, paid this guy $750,000 for 2 weeks worth of lobbying work, with the directed thought that he was going to lobby Trump to give him a pardon. $750,000 to this guy. The pardon didn't happen, and I guess in this vein, good on Trump, because Pettit was a guy who according to the Atlanta Constitution newspaper, the Journal Constitution, evidently he's facing up to 20 years in prison for securities fraud. Yeah. I hope he does all 20. I hope they give him 25 for bad behavior. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on the big news of the day and maybe what crimes we will uncover going forward, our good friend, political analyst and former Congressman Bob Ney. Bob, thanks for taking time for us.
Well, thank you, Rick.
So do you think we'll see a lot of these stories? And look, I understand every term we have presidents who get something, the appearance that they're getting something for pardons is always there. I just don't know that we're going to see to this extent anything like this throughout history.
Well, it happens. I think you're seeing, more now, including the information that we know right at this point in time about Giuliani himself, who I don't know if he got the payment, or he was trying to get the payment, or what happened. But when you see somebody that close to the president, if you've got a regular lobbyist quote, and they're trying to do some work for somebody, they're probably not passing that money on. But then when you see them in the inner circle, like Giuliani and others, it's obviously going to be bad or at least look bad.
Yeah, no, it looks terrible. But I look at Giuliani especially and go, he was super crime fighter at one point. He was America's mayor. How the high and mighty hath fallen.
Well, Rick, look, with Giuliani, which, after 9/11, I, like most people in this country, really looked up to him, right? Everybody did, America's mayor. And then I think I lost confidence in him a long time back when he took, I can't remember if it was 100,000 or 150,000 early in his time to lobby for the MEK, Mojahedin Khalq, who were on the terror list. They were an official registered terrorist group, and he took the money to lobby to not have them an official terrorist group. And when he did that, I thought, okay, money is his lord.
Yeah, well, how does he get away with that? I mean, immediately my mind goes to this place, and we've talked about this before. How does he not get locked up for that? I mean,
Bolton too. Bolton gave speeches, but Giuliani, of all people, you can't lobby for a registered. Now they're not on the terror list anymore, but they were, and nobody went after him. I guess if you're in the barrel and they go after you, that's one thing, but nobody did. I mean, clear violation of the law.
Crazy.
Clear.
Just crazy. But we'll see where it takes us. I didn't have you on Inauguration Day. I wanted to get your thoughts of Joe Biden's speech.
Thought it was pretty good, and I think it's being recognized as pretty good. I have heard directly from some fairly conservative people that they thought it was a good speech. I think in general, a lot of people felt that. And I thought the inaugural was handled pretty good, with some of the effects and things they did, because it couldn't be, like your regular, normal inaugural day. And so I thought that they did a pretty decent job of putting everything together, just the technical part of it. But the speech was good, and a lot of people seem to have liked it.
Yeah, my position was good. We got it out of the way. Formality. Let's get to work. And he did right away, day one. 10 executive orders today. A slew of executive orders. There's been a bunch of executive action to get us somewhere onto the path that the president would like to guide us.
Yes, and also, and I've had this question asked, well, how can he do this? Well, he is, for the most part, doing an executive order about something that Trump did an executive order over. So what he is doing didn't go through the system, quote, through the Congress itself. It never did. It was done by, as presidents do, with executive orders. So everything he did, if it can be done by executive order, it can be undone by executive order.
Correct. So, because I had asked the question, is there a way to go, what, everything Trump did, we're just going to undo and put it back. We're going to have like a computer restart date. You just go, have you ever restarted your computer to an early date?
Sure.
It gives you the option to go pick a date. We go back to there. It's a restart. No, obviously you can't. But I guess the question then comes up of, is there a moment in the near future where we go, okay, now we're going to stop with this executive order stuff, and we're going to actually get a functional Congress that in a moment of crisis is actually going to do their jobs?
Well, executive orders have been growing. When I was there as a Republican Congress, we used to argue amongst ourselves about President Bush, who was Republican, doing, quote, too many executive orders. And then there's signing statements. We haven't even got into that. Nobody talks about signing statements.
Yeah, because no legislation passed during the last term.
Yeah, true. But signing statements, where something passes and the president says, okay, I'm signing that bill, but I kind of don't like this. And it automatically, legally sends a signal to a cabinet member to not do what the Congress wanted, But the executive orders, when people asked me this week, well, I thought there was going to be unity and he was going to seek Republican approval. Well, these were not orders, again, that were done through a Congress. And by the way, he did keep, a few things that Trump had for the, temporary moment. Tariffs, with China, for example. The look at the troops to be removed, the potential from Afghanistan. So there were some things kept, and then there were some things that were reversed, the Paris Climate Accord and the Arctic, the XL pipeline, some different things like that. And I think, too, for the effect of it, it shows that on opening day, he did the following things. If you remember going back to the contract with America, Newt Gingrich, the opening day, 15 things were done on the opening day. So, I mean, it was a good strategy if you're going to do it. It's not like you go into the White House and they say, well, what did Biden do this week? Right there, that was the first thing he did. So it makes an impact.
No, it's like the stories they tell you if you're taking over running a new organization, that you go and you fire all the people that you want to get rid of on the first day, so that everybody else feels safe that they're going to be able to be around for a while. And and on that vein, the fact that he went into the NLRB and fired the general counsel and the deputy general counselor, I thought, for me as a labor guy, was an incredible sign that he's going to be aggressive. Now, the Republicans are screaming because this isn't how things have been done in the past. But I think post-Trump, or 3AT after Trump, we're in a brave new world.
Well, yes, I think in the National Labor Relations Board, that was a big sign. In the consumer, side of things, that was another, big sign with his, appointment there. And so I think it shows something. And also on a sense of continuity, Janet Yellen going from Fed Reserve into the Treasury, and then, on the day before, she's testifying that, well, wait a minute, we're not going to mess with interest rates. We're not going to take them up. So that was also a sense of a continuity too.
Yeah. No, I'm hopeful. I'm guardedly optimistic that we get through this impeachment process, which I guess the articles will come out on Monday. Let's start with that. Do you think that's a mistake?
Oh, it was a huge mistake of the process of what they did, in my opinion, humble opinion. I mean, it can come out all right, but what baffles me, I guess, Rick, is the House impeached and then, sat on it to transmit it. And I know what they were doing. They were doing that to wait till Schumer got a deal with McConnell. And in my mind, I sort of think, why? Now it's moved to February 8th. I mean, it's going to be over with. I understand that. I just think it should have been done, quicker.
No, and I said this from the beginning. I'm struggling with my belief that this should have been long over with. I want immediate, swift justice. And then there's the other part of the media going, well, maybe we should hold off a little bit. And as all of these criminals that we arrest around the country, it comes out, how tied into these militia groups and how tied in they are to Trump, that maybe this story, gets bigger. I'm kind of in that space where I'm not 100% sure on either side.
Yeah, and then, of course, as time goes on, even though it's a short period of time, people start to reflect differently, et cetera. But here is, and maybe I'm going to be wrong here. I'm just saying if February the 8th, it begins the official process. Of course, Monday you're going to have the arguments presented, but February the 8th we go into there, and it takes a few more days after that, and you're into, let's say, the 12th or something. And how much does the media then begin to have this dominate, and it just needs to be over with one way or the other, and then Biden is there. So I just thought it should have went faster.
Yeah, no,
in my opinion.
I agree with you on that front because I don't want this chewing up a bunch of time into the
right.
Do you think he's going to be convicted? Do you think that's going to happen?
Well, I don't know. Normally I love to predict things. I make predictions. I don't know. It depends on what people are starting to say. The numbers are starting to run upwards of people saying that he should be convicted. That's running up. The poll numbers. It has a lot of influence on senators. Will something be said by Trump that's, of course it's quiet now, but that is outrageous? Will something else come out by that time? I don't know.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm definitely not in the category of, he's not going to be. I think it could be 50-50.
Yeah. You need 17 Republicans, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I keep looking at that number going, wow, that's a lot of them.
It's a stretch. It's a hill, but we'll have to see what happens. I mean, if you make me bet tonight, I don't think so. But again, I'm very undecided on it. There's a lot of factors out here, and then you never know which direction McConnell finally goes.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, you said a second ago that McConnell and Schumer, came up with an agreement.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of got the sense that you were like, why are you asking for an agreement? Was Schumer mistaken here? Is there a way that he could have steamrolled this process?
Yes, because it starts technically if there's no agreement. So therefore, when McConnell said, well, Chuck, I want 2 weeks, then Chuck could say, well, hey, Mitch, how about we give you 4 days? I just think it may show civility, but I'm not sure that's needed. So I was a little surprised. I had predicted that Schumer would be more hardball on this one and reduce the time element.
Yeah, I think you give. I don't have a real high opinion of Chuck Schumer.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't.
Well, part of the problem with Schumer, on a personal level, I never have in a sense for a multitude of reasons. Especially, frankly, in the House, his Wall Street approach was,
and that's my problem.
Like a vacuum cleaner, we used to call him when it came to Wall Street, money. But I just think sometimes Schumer, he's old school like McConnell, and the bottom line is their majority leadership is more important than the institution itself. So I've always felt that, and that applies to McConnell too.
Yeah, I'd like to see him be more aggressive. I'm hoping the best for him. I'm hoping he steers the ship in the right direction. I'm hoping behind him. Let's get that done. But I'd like to see him learn to drive the steamroller a little bit better.
Right. Maybe this is an isolated case. He wants to get this done. Doesn't want a ton of damage, and then he's got see how he handles the rest of the agenda. And that's going to be, very important because you're going to have a couple of Democrats that could say no, and then, of course, you might have a couple of Republicans that could say yes. Very interesting.
Yeah. Now, yesterday, the letter had come to Chris Coons, I guess the ethics chairman, seeking to expel or censure Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz, and there seems to be a pretty growing movement of people who want to see expulsions. Do you see that happening on any vein at this moment?
I don't see expulsions happening unless they can directly link beyond the fact that we all know these people, in the Senate led people on, unlike the fact that, I'm just trying to point out, they could have said, I'm just trying to point out election irregularities, which is what happened in 2005 with Stephanie Tubbs Jones, the late Congresswoman from Cleveland. But they took it to another complete different level, telling people, come on, here we go, we can do it. Then the president says, go get the vice president, he can do it. So that in itself could tend to lead to censorship. I don't think expulsion, but it could lead to censorship. Right now, you can bet that they're laying low on trying to make a lot of comments of what they did.
Yeah, I mean, but they say in the 14th Amendment, there a lot of people are pointing out the part in the 14th Amendment that no person shall hold office if they've been part of an insurrection, and they're, right. I mean, the language is pretty clear.
Yeah. Oh yes, and then on the other side of it, I used to tell people this: you have to be very careful who you put into the Congress, because technically, you can go to the floor of the House and Senate and say any single thing you want about anybody, and it doesn't have to be true, then you have immunity on the floor. That's the other side of this thing. It can be, you can stand there and say, I think the following 5 people are drug dealers, and they can't sue you for any wrongdoing. So it's a fine line, but this is a little bit more specific about insurrection. If it was another topic and they were outrageous, you'd say nothing will happen. But this one, there could be a pattern which would lead to the ethics committee doing some type of censorship.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes, and I've got great hopes. I'm hopeful that now there's an adult in charge, and some of the wheels of our government are back to rolling again, and we start getting this pandemic under control by doing things.
That's the big deal too with Biden, the pandemic.
Yep. And look, I mean, his executive orders on day one of centralizing distribution, setting up testing sites, setting up some vaccination sites across the country, getting federal employees into this. And I said, back when Trump was saying we're going to use the military, I'm going, hell, if you can hold a bayonet, you can hold a needle. Let's get people giving shots. It's not that hard.
Sure, and it's going to be important for Biden, number one, on the pandemic, because obviously the rollout hasn't been real successful. It's going like snails. So this is a chance for them, starting Wednesday, to really accelerate this thing, and that in itself helps a lot. Not only people's health, their life, but also confidence in the economy.
Yep. If we can get things turned around by late spring, early summer, where life starts getting back to normal, got a good shot at getting things done.
Sure.
Good stuff. Bob, as always, I appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you.
Our good friend Bob Ney. Seriously, I mean, if we can reopen come summertime, and this 100 days of wearing masks and doing the 1,000 doses in 100 days, 100 million doses in 100 days, maybe we can get more people vaccinated. We can get through this, and on the other side, rebuild our economy and rebuild our infrastructure and all the stuff that needs to happen. I'm hopeful. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I'm going to take a quick break. Right back to wrap things up. Stick around.
Saving work in America, one show at a time. The Rick Smith Show.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1849. That was the birthday of U.S. labor leader Terence Powderly. Powderly was born the second youngest of 12 children to Irish immigrants in Carbondale, Pennsylvania. At the age of 14, he went to work for the Delaware and Hudson Railroad. In 1871, he joined the International Union of Machinists and Blacksmiths. Also involved in local politics, he was elected mayor of Scranton, Pennsylvania 7 years later. Powderly is most well known for his leadership of the Knights of Labor. The Knights of Labor were a new kind of U.S. labor union in the late 1880s. They invited workers to join regardless of their trade or skill. They helped to lead the fight for the 8-hour day. In his autobiography, Powderly described why he was so committed to the labor movement. writing, 5 men in the country controlled the chief interests of 500,000 working men and can at any moment take the means of livelihood from 2.5 million souls. The goal of the Knights of Labor was to give voice to those 500,000 souls. By 1879, Powderly rose to become the Grand Master Workman, the highest leader of the Knights. Powderly was weary of strikes as a tactic for labor. Yet, despite these personal qualms, the Knights led several successful strikes under his leadership, including one against railroad tycoon Jay Gould. The Knights grew to represent 700,000 workers across the nation. But then, the Haymarket tragedy occurred when a bomb was thrown by an unknown assailant at a workers' rally in Chicago in 1886. In the aftermath of Haymarket, there was a national backlash against labor unions. The Knights bore the brunt as membership dropped by nearly 90%. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So according to the Center for Responsive Politics, they're reporting that the Trump campaign paid $2.7 million to individuals and firms to put on the rally that ended up storming the Capitol. And I think at some point we're going to find out that that there was at some level coordination there. And this goes back to the kind of stuff that right from the beginning of this administration that they've been involved in. I go back to everyone wants to say collusion. I'm going to say coordination. The fact that they were on the same page as the Russian hackers and the bots, the fact that, hey, Russia, go get those emails, and boom, there they are, tells me that there was some communication. And when you read the Mueller report, you look at there were 120 contacts between Russian operatives and the Trump campaign. And you go, well, they're just used to doing business and with the Russians, and they're used to having those ties. And from the beginning, I said, I admit that. These are people who have done business over there for years. They're folks who have, they're used to each other. Hey, can you do me a favor? I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. So it to them wasn't collusion, wasn't treason. It was the good old boys doing stuff for each other. It's how business gets done. And here, this I see as the same kind of thing. But did they know that this was possible? Did they know that they were dancing with the devil? I believe they did. I believe they've been courting this. They've been stoking those flames, trying to get people to that level of willing to commit violence. They lit the fire, and then they took the bricks away from around it and let it spread into a forest fire. And for me, that's a huge part of what he has to be held accountable for. Absolutely. Inciting a riot, absolutely. But the fact that our president was AWOL during an attack on our Capitol, I think that is much, much worse. I think that is much worse. And because of that, needs to be held accountable. Now, would I love to see Trump start a third party? Sure. Because I think the Republicans, the McConnell-type Republicans, I think they're done with him. But I do see that if he's around, he's going to cause grief for quite some time, and it's going to be an interesting couple of years in what happens with these militia groups, who have now grown to be fairly muscular, fairly willing to take to the spotlight, and have been recruiting heavily these last 4 years. It's going to be interesting to see what the stunts that they pull next, because look, they haven't gone away. They've just gone a little bit deeper underground. They're just receding for the time being until the heat dies down. Most likely trying to evade prosecution. which is why I think that our FBI needs to spend a lot of time locking people up. If you were part of this, you need to be held accountable. Now, look, I am somebody who believes that you have the right to petition your government, grievance of your government. You have a right by all means. But the intent was not to petition your government for the redress of grievances. The intent was not to have your voices heard. The intent was to hang people. The intent was to cause damage and to harm. The intent was to stop the wheels of our government from moving forward and a peaceful transfer of power from happening. And for that, there can be no forgiveness. Just my thought. I'd love to hear yours. If you missed any of today's program, thericksmithshow.com. That's where you go to get the podcast, The Rick Smith Show app on the smartphone. Take the program on the go wherever you go. And as always, you can email me, rick at thericksmithshow.com. Saturday, 7 p.m., our trivia night with Congressman Eric Swalwell. You're not going to want to miss that. Great opportunity to have a little fun and talk about Joe Biden's labor plan. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.